to another Bright News discussion. And I'm here today with Dr.Deresse Ayenachew. So today we're going to talk about the medieval period of Ethiopian history. So without further ado, Dr. Ayenachew, how are you doing?
Fine, I'm glad to be with you. Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. It's a great pleasure to you to come here. I mean,
thank you. I'm really excited. So, okay, for the first question here, I want to before we get into that, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your work and how you got into medieval studies. Yeah,
and I'm now here in France, in Marseille. I'm working on the medieval history of Ethiopia, just in a program we call the European Research Council. And I am a historian. I'm a researcher in the team, and we are working since 2018 in nearby Mekelle. But unfortunately, it is now interrupted because of the war. But we were working on this area. Still, we are continuing working. And then I'm working since 20 years, on the medical history of Ethiopia. And I graduated from Paris. We were for one university in Paris, the history center for Ethiopian studies in this world. And if you want to pass study French, medieval Ethiopian studies, you have to pass Paris one university for a good story.
Yeah,
because are now about 30 people, more than 30 people graduated, and most of them are, they are not Ethiopians. Most of them they are Europeans.
Right.
And I then after I went to Ethiopia, I was teaching in the Debre Birhan University for about 7 years.
Okay.
And then I created also a center for medieval studies called the Yaakov Center for Medieval Studies in the University of Debre Birhan. And we started master's program, PhD program. That because of maybe we'll say something because of marginalizing the medieval Ethiopian studies, medieval Ethiopian history.
Yes.
And it is a refugee in Europe, but I try to return it back to its place.
Right.
And there are master's and PhD programs. But still now it's with the new politics, it is also problematic. So.
Right. Well, I'm glad to be talking to one of the pioneers of Ethiopian studies and Ethiopian history. So it's a great privilege and honor. And
thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So for my first question, that would be the role of the Kebra Nagast in the formation of the medieval Ethiopian state. So how was the Kebra Nagast developed? Like, how did that?
Yeah, very, very good question. It is before it became the national epic of Ethiopia. Kebra Nagast was, passed a very different processes. It's primarily for me, it is circulating the northeastern part of Africa, because Egypt and Christian Nubia, Ethiopia, and so on. This is circulating in the medieval period, and later it was translated. It was written into Arabic and Coptic language sometime, and in Ethiopia, it is probably translated before 1322.
Okay.
And there is an argument also in 6 AD, but it's not very strong. But before 1322, it will be translated because, as we'll see, the Solomonic dynasties are not one pretenders of the power, but because the Zagwe are also Solomonic, and also the Amhara Shah, and also this is the southern Tigray people. And Derta was very important in the transition period of this early in the end of 13th century, because it is the founding dynasty of the Nderta called Ngidagzi, his son Ekbegzi, or translated to Ge'ez by the help of the cathedral, the priestess of the Cathedral of Aksum. Before 1322, because I say because he was defeated by another, the Amhara Solomonic wing, Amdemitzion, in 1322. He was replaced by the wife of the king himself, and the colophon attributes to Kbegzi. So he was, it should be translated before 1322. So in my view, so this is the first point, and its development is, the most important. It was its inspiration to build a Christian kingdom of Ethiopia on the paradigm of the biblical Ethiopia, biblical Israel. This is a very important. It is an epic. It gives Ethiopia a Judaic origin to the state, to the people, and also to the church. That is a very important part of Kibra Negest for me, that we are going to develop later. So that in the story it was written that she went to Queen Sheba went to the court of Solomon. She brought she saw the wisdom of his court and so on. Then she came back. She fell in love with him, and she conceived a son called Menelik first, and she established. She came back and she gave birth to Menelik first. Not even in Aksum. She gave birth in the Hamasin, in the Hamasin region, the Kalagudai region. So that's we'll see that how they went to harmonize all these pretenders of Solomonic dynasty, also the Christian community, and its development is gradually. And then we have to go to the early 14th century, who was the famous king of Ethiopia, who was Amdezion, who was pushed to the north war and established the first Ethiopian medieval state in early 14th century. He went as far as to Egypt, to Massawa, and he said, "I liberated my people." So that starts, that commands the state, the Ethiopian state in the Solomonic medieval state. That's as we will see that how Ikonu Amlak took the power, but strong rewriting of or readapting of Kibra Negest was accomplished by the time of King Amdezion, who took all the military power, and then he began to write. And his writings are not only Kibra Negest. He wrote also the constitution, what you call the first constitution of Ethiopia, the Srat Mengist, and they continued Srat Gibir, and Srat also. He was the most important, responsible for rewriting of the Kibra Negest into the Ethiopian context.
So he was the one that basically helped to give formation to Ethiopian identity and the Solomonic dynasty as a kingdom. He was the one to solidify that.
Yeah, we are going to see also, as in the next question, as you have said, Ikonu Amlak was very important, but Amdezion in the reduction of Kibra Negest, we have many important elements which are attributed to him because of his military power. He later, in the northern part was between 1316 and 1370. He traveled all over the Hamasin, Tigray, and also to the west, to the Gondar, to Gojam, and as far as to the south of Blue Nile, and he, for the first time, he started to, he started the vision of Ikono Amlak, to uniting the Christians to one solid, strong kingdom.
Right, right. Okay, okay. So for the in terms of Christians uniting, we talk about the fact that I suppose, I guess these Christian kingdoms or chieftaincies, they weren't under one person. They were all kind of scattered around. So here we talk about the rise of Muslim sultanates, right? That I guess would have prompted these Christian kingdoms to unite. Is that true? Like, did the Muslim and animist kingdoms pose a economic and political threat to the Christian kingdoms, and that's why they wanted to come together?
Yes, that's a very good question. In the end of 13th century, we have to see, the global northeastern Africa, because they were Christian kingdoms before 640, before Islam took Egypt, and then took also the coast of Adulis, Ethiopia, Aksum. So this area where, most of them were, all of them, they were Christians, since from Ethiopia to Cairo or to Alexandria. So the Ethiopian metropolitan was coming from there. But gradually we see that the Islam was expanding to the south. And in the end of 13th century, even the Nubian kingdom was, almost controlled by the Muslims. And this was reported by the Ethiopian pilgrims to the Christians in Ethiopia. So all this this information, threatened already the expansion. Threatened these Ethiopians or the Christians. And secondly, Islam, as you know, penetrated from the north, from the side of Dahlak, before in the beginning of 9th century. And we are not speaking about the coming of the followers of Prophet Muhammad, because it is very brief, and it's very, very long time, and the objectives also, which was very different. It's not, Islam is not at that period, at that stage of expansion. So established in Dahlak, the islands, and they began to penetrate to the eastern escarpment of the Ethiopian highlands, and little by little they pushed to the south, and they controlled the most part of Ethiopia, particularly the southern and eastern part. And in between 9th and 12th century, we know that now, as I've said, that in our research team found many funerary inscriptions written in Arabic inscriptions, and stating from 9th to the 11th, 13th century, nearby now Mekelle, nearby the place called Kuiha, and 10 kilometers from Mekelle, and it is along the great distance, the great trade distance. So we see that the gradual descendants of the trade routes to the southwest, but to the eastern part of the escarpment. So this, of course, in the early 12th century, we have a very good document now. We have translated it and now updated it to this quotation, the history of the Sultanic history of the Sultanic Shah. So in Shah, in the early 12th century, there was a small state, Muslim state, and that controlled created a confederation with the other polities called Kubat or Gdeya and so on. This local, they became very strong, Even Christianity was not pushed to the south in this period, and they created this. And then you see that now from the north, Islam is expanding. From east and south, it is also expanded to the north. So they were feared, they're threatened by the expansion of Islam. So that's why they needed, an ideology which unites them. They have the Christianity, but they needed also another more to survive, because they knew that now, Islam is expanding and overtaking all over the Nubian and the other places.
Yes.
So that's why they united first by the Zagwe and then by Enderta and the Maharashtra alliance, because the Zagwes are very important also for claiming the Solomonic dynasty. And maybe we'll see that in the next question.
Yes, yeah, that actually leads me to the next question, which is the Zagwes. My question here is, can you explain why the various Ethiopian kingdoms, such as in Enderta, or in Wolo, Betamara, why those various kingdoms would have wanted to rebel against the Zagwe dynasty? I've heard some people say, well, because they didn't think the Zagwes were really the descendants of the Aksumite, the inheritors of the Aksumite kingdom, or they didn't fit into, they weren't the descendants of Solomon. They considered themselves to be the descendants of Moses, or something like that. So and then also the other thing too is the Zagwes. This is my personal observation, but that the Zagwe kingdom wasn't as expansionary. They didn't expand. They were much more internalized. And they did a lot in terms of architecture. Like the building of Lalibela, and things like that. But they weren't concerned with trying to push the boundaries, out further. So yeah, I guess in
Thank
short,
you so much. This Zagwe period is, for me, it is a fascinating period. As you have said, because of we'll see two or three reasons. The first one is the Zagwe kingdom is coming, part of the threat of that understood the threat of expansion of Islam, and they are the first kingdom who re-established the first the descendants of the Christian kingdom of Aksum. That's very important, and they inspired everything from Aksum. In the style of Aksum, everything, if you go to the monolithic churches, you see all over the churches, the Aksumite architecture, the Aksumite symbols, signs, and so on. So the Zagwe kingdom is, for this reason, it's very important, and that is, as I call it, is awakening the Christian kingdom in Ethiopia before the coming of the Solomonic dynasty. We'll see why the problem of the Zagwe kingdom. The second point is, as you have said, not it's not I think it's not correct that they were not expanding their kingdom. No, they were expanding their kingdom as far as Hamasen, as far as Gojam, as far as Gondar, as far as Amhara. These were part of their kingdom, and they were pushing to the north. Why? We know that. Why they push the north? As I've said, there is something, very strong pressure coming from the north. So that's why they went to the north. The third very important turning point in Ethiopian history is in Zagwe is the land tenure system. Risk and gold. And the risk and the gold system was introduced. We don't have any, information about Aksumite kingdom, the land system, the land administration system. But we know that the Zagwe kings introduced the land system that we call it now Rist, and we call it also Gult. And Rist is very, very important because it is the right to own land. We will see, according to the tradition of Kibra Negist, the Kibra Negist narrates that Ethiopia is a promised land, so the land belongs to the peasants, the people, the tribes of the 12 tribes. Ethiopia is a 12 tribes, the 12 tribes of Ethiopia. And the land belongs to God, and the kings are the keepers of the lands of the promised land of Ethiopia. So in this sense, now you have the right, your land, you have the rest is your right, just as you get, so as you get the land, once it is resty, no one could touch it, and no one could take it away from you, even the king.
Shannon is the host now.
Oh, sorry, we got cut off. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear.
Okay. So yeah, you were talking about the land.
Yes,
the land
tenants.
The Zagwes.
Yes, the Zagwes. So we have land grants here in Hamasin, of course, a very well-known Deresse Libanos of Shemazena, in southern part of, and it was supposed to be the birthplace of the wife of King Lalibela. Kibra Meskel. So Meskel Kibra. So that was one of the center. We see that the land grants were given to this area, this church, and it became the patron church of that period. Also, one of the patron church of that period. Also, so we see that was that was begun by King. So Zagwe, the land tenure system. The Guld system is the right to extract from the products of the peasants. So the king gives a salary as a salary to the service given to him. So Guld is, you can extract. You go to the rest. The man who inherited his land. We call it Balerist, who has his rest. And you, in the end of the harvest, you go to ask some amount of his harvest to the king. So the king pays a salary to his soldiers, or so to those who give him services.
Right. So it would have been like what we call, I guess, like sharecropping. Like sharecropping, where you work.
A tax, it is a tax. They take over, though it is very heavy to the peasants, and what in Ethiopian proverb says that what God created a rest, the king created good. So rest is, this is belongs to, you can inherit to your children. It can give everything to your, without any limitation, without any pressure from any person, from even the king. But Gult, the king, in a sense, issue many claims your products. Maybe in the end of the year, from his production, the peasant would have only 2% of his production. That's why it is very painful. That's why the revolutionaries even didn't understood.
Right.
That is the Zagwe period. The Zagwe, as I've said, the politics, religion, and also economic. And they opened the first time, the expansion, and they opened the unity, or also they opened the eyes of the possibility of the awakening of the Christians. Through economic system, they created also this economic system, went as far as 1974.
Right. Okay.
So they are responsible for that. What was the problem of the Zagwe problem is two important problems. The first is the internal organization problem.
Okay.
The power succession problem was very, very violent. You can't imagine. Taudim or Lalibela, Harbe, Nekutelab, or Yitbarek took power with bloodshed. And they invited many, many pretenders from Tigray or from Amhara to as soldiers, as you know. So there was a big problem of the Zagwe internal problem, which was violent, and they are incapable, and they were destabilized and weakened. They had destabilized and weakened leadership in that period. And the second is their economic. I know this all created, of course, many others, opposing them. They were resisting. The Amhara was resisting. The Gojam or every pretenders were resisting because of their weakness. So they didn't get much, tributes and so on. So for internal strengths for they need resources.
Right.
They didn't get human resources, economic resources, and they have also internally really violent. You can't imagine how it was violent in this.
Right.
For this reason, what happened, of course, that brought for me the Nderta and the Amhara alliance, because the threat was not removed from them. This southward expansion of Islam is still there. It's still there. So they can't.
They're still in contact with the Amharas and the people in Tigray are still in contact with trade.
All the pilgrims are going to the Cairo, to the Alexandria, Jerusalem. They're coming back, and still they are reporting that there is still, a threat, but you are fighting together here for the power. We are now disappearing and so on. The Zagwe is enabled, and they can't. They can't. Even they created. We know that they created the second Jerusalem paradigm from the Bible. That's all, that doesn't play also because it was for them the Zagwe were not very strong to realize that the expansion of Islam was at the door. So the two Nderta and Amhara Shah lands becoming rewriting. Even I am saying I might be wrong, but they rewriting the Kibra itself, because they wrote the Kibra that now viewing that these are from they are not Semitic, or they are not saying that. No, I don't think that's a question of Semitic or Cushitic. They are most, the best religious person in Ethiopia is the Zagwe people, and they command well is more than any person. There is no difference between these people. Christianity is there, but the problem is their inability to strengthen themselves internally. Particularly the internal organization is vital for a state to be dominates the politics of the period. Even today also we need the internal strength is very important in any politics, that. So that was their setback. So the Kibra Negest was rewritten for me. Then they began to say they began to rewrite the Kibra Negest. Okay, finally they say that now these are in the colophon. You see that it is written in the during the Lalibela time or something in the Kibra Negest, but these were not Israelites. They are not from Israel, and so on. All these are rhetoric that to take the power. This is a to take the power, and then finally they were successful, but Nderta was also incapable because even Nderta is, their center is almost controlled by Muslim city states. We can see that now. Many now. What I've said for the last 3-4 years, we are studying this area. This Muslim Arabic inscription shows that the people are coming from Egypt, from Yemen, and from as far as Persia and so on. We see that there was a real development of very strong Muslim communities nearby Nderta. Even they took part of the Nderta territories, so they were not inhabitable. So finally, the Amhara and Shawa were more fertile areas, better organized militarily. The alliance is very, very, very strong. And the population also, they are very good. The number of the population of Amhara and Shawa were more populated than the same story we have now. The Anderta and Zagwe. We know that the Anderta, even they couldn't, not only that, they couldn't even unite those which are under their territories. The territory of Tigray, is not strongly organized or strongly united as Amhara and Shaw. That's why the Zagwe were defeated in 1270 by Ikono Amlak, and also in Derta were obliged to accept the authority of the Ikono Amlak.
Okay. So speaking about Ikono Amlak, because he's a special guy. He's a very important the centerpiece in this story, in this beginnings here. Can we talk a little bit more about him?
Yes. Ikono Amlak is a very special king. It's a very, very important leader, and as I've said, that he's a very good organizer militarily, and also he's a very, very intelligent in both, organizing the military and working with churches, and we will see that also. So Ikono Amlak, though is not the beginner of, as I've said, the Solomonic dynasty conception of the foundation of this period, but we are for him, very strong belief that he organized the military leadership with better resources, comfortably, and he able to also to control, to unite all these pretenders, and particularly his ability to defend the most important, to know the ability to know how he defended or organized the transition of the succession of power. He was very strong in the succession power. Even he arranged everything for the succession of power after him. He was not thinking of the first one, and not only thinking of the first one taking the power, and also thinking of the second from his time. That's why the Zagwe kings were lost. The second point was his military organization to the north. How he took the same system of the Zagwe. He went as far as south of Hamasen, and he convinced also the Nderta pretenders without any there is no war, as we see after the king who defeated Itbarak. We don't see that. We see, but he's recognized by the land grant written in the Debrecen, in the Libanus Shemazana in Eritrea today, in southern Eritrea. So he followed the same step. Second, he was very brilliant, as I've said, that for military organization, that he put a garrison in Lasta for about 7 years. You know, around, we have a number of names of Ikono Amlak here and there. And it was very transitional. Not, you know, he knew also the, you know, the military hegemony is very important for him.
Yeah.
And he put this military hegemony not far from La Libera. It's about 70 kilometers, from 17 kilometers from La Libera, nearby his own rock-hewn church called, today it is Gernata Mariam. You know?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you know, how he was planning, you know, you see that how he was accepted and militarily once he put, and then how he was granting land, just like the Zagwe kings, and then he put his garrison nearby the Lalibela church. Lalibela churches for the last. The oral tradition says that he put his army for about 7 years, and then the third point is his ability to convince the Zagwe you know, the Zagwe people or the Zagwe followers, or at the time they call Bugna or the Lasta today, the Lasta people, because he built also the same church of Gernata Mariam, and the same in the stereotype of that was built by La Libela, called the Church of Beit Medanialam. It is a copy of, you know, he put the copy of Beit Medanialam in Gernata Mariam.
Okay.
And then he copied also, and he's shown that he's capable of also doing, you know,
the same thing. Yeah.
Saintly church, but it is very, it's not very big, like just like Beit Medanialam, but it's more, less. And the other is his ability was that he consecrated this Gernata Mariam, we now today call it by the name of Abayimata. Abayimata is one of the member of the 9 centers in the 5th century in Ethiopia. So he preached this area, the Lasta area. It was his preaching area in this time, and you see you have many names of Abayimata in 5th century, 6th century of Lasta. Today, if you go, oral tradition tells you that, not only oral tradition, but you see the painting, the 13th century paintings of Abayimata side by side, the Ikono Amlak. So you see that the ability of Ikono Amlak in his you know, the last administration, the northern part of administration, the southern, the Tigray side administration. Then he was enforcing the military hegemony, and with this ability that he, as I've said, also as I've said, that, you know, he was also continued to organize the internal secession of his followers, because I don't know if we are going to see also, you know, the southern part also, he you know, the Muslim side also, he began to reorganize it. We don't see any violent military action from Ikono Amlak even against Muslims. We know that but they were paying annual tributes to him also. So you see how he was able to organize, and the Shan petty polities, you know, Christian polities were here and there. They are counted about 7, but they were also organized by himself, and they fought behind him for the realization of this the strong kingdom of the Christian kingdom.
Right. Okay. So, we talking about the Muslim states and everything, right? There's one sultanate that I see a lot popping up when I when you read things about the Solomonic dynasty, and that's the Walashma dynasty, right? They seem to emerge around the same time as the Solomonic dynasty, like around like 1280 something, 1285.
Yes, 1277 is very.
Right.
We'll have the documents in 1277. So, very interesting to know how they emerged. Always fascinates every medieval historian. It's the time, the media. Ikono Amlak took power in 1270, and Walasma dynasty also began to reorganize the Islamic Confederation, Muslim Confederation, because, as I've said, they were different, divergent people, and divided Muslim kingdoms, very, very small kingdoms, but fighting also each other as the Zagwe, and the Ifat kingdom was emerging from the lowland, of course. Before, as I've said, 12th century, in the 12th century, there was the Shan Sultanate. We call it the Shan Sultanate. And as I've said, that from Dahalag, they pushed into the south, and they established a kingdom called Sultanate of Shah, Gdaya, and Hobart, and so on. This is as far as to the Dredoa also. We can debate there. Protracted small kingdoms. So the Wolasma family, it is believed that they are from Argoba people, and the Argoba people were controlling the highland of Ethiopia since we know that from 16th century up to the 15th, 16th century, along with up to today's Harar and Zeila, even to the eastern escarpment of the Ethiopia. And we know some people are they are saying that today also we are descendants of Wolasma. No, the family, I know the family also, they are saying that the family Wolasma, they are saying that, yes, from Debre Brahan, not far from Debre Brahan, there are near Ankober. Ankober is the capital of Shan kings in the 18th and 19th century. So there is a very big market, the Argoba big market, Ali Yuamba. See, there are people who are claiming that they are descendants of Wolasma. By inference, so we are saying that maybe if they were. He was also part of the Wolasma dynasty, Wolasma family from our Argoba people. So the Argoba people also are Semitic language speakers, and using also the Ethiopic writing style. It is written. The 14th century sources are telling us that it is particularly Alumari writing, telling us that the Ifat kings were writing was the same, their indigenous writing style. So they use also Arabic language, Arabic writings, particularly for funerary inscriptions. When we see that in the funerary inscription, maybe that is, it's the class, maybe special people who are writing, for Arabic sources. We have Arabic sources also written. The second point is that the linguistics are saying that if the Argoba is the dialect of Amharic, it is the dialect of Amharic.
Okay.
So if this is a dialect of Amharic, so the highland is the Amharic people, really highland of Shah and Amhara, the Amharic speaking people, and the lowland is also the Argoba speaking people, which is the dialect of Amharic. And originally they have the same origin, which means by the linguistics. If the dialect, we can understand Amharic and Argoba, when they speak, you understand what they are speaking. For Amharic speakers, it is not very difficult. So what happened? So this is the choice, I think. So because of the trade and contact, they choose also the Mulasma people. The Agoba people choose Islam as their state religion, and the Highlanders choose the Christianity as their state religion. That is absolute. So with this, we can see that there are differences, and they have the same ambition.
Right.
As I've said that
Yeah.
as long as Christianity, Islam is a threat for Christianity, and the Christian expansion also, it is a threat for Muslim kingdoms, of course.
Right. Right.
That
So
that is
yeah. In the
that's
beginning, they're getting along. They're okay
yeah.
with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, they
They're
were pushing
partners.
the north now. Now
Yeah.
they see that the Economamlak is reorganizing and taking much places and controlling, uniting the others. So he's pushing to the south. Now he's imposing to the Ifat kingdom. So I believe that the Walasma, Omar Walasma was understood that the next step. So we see that from sources that they have the same ambition. The ambition is creating a very strong Muslim kingdom in the Horn of Africa. The other side was also the ambition of creating the Christian kingdom in the Horn of Africa. That is the big vision of the two brothers, if you want.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's how I see it. That's how I
Yes,
see it. They're like two.
they are brothers.
Yeah.
They have the same handwriting, the same
Right.
dialect they are speaking,
Right.
and they
Right.
have the same ambition.
Yeah.
The ideology is different. Okay,
Right.
that is the ideology of Islam. That is the ideology of Christianity.
Right.
In the meantime, then finally, this is the late mythology. We have the late mythology that they are coming from, not from Ethiopia. They are from, Arab dynasty, the Quraysh dynasty, who were here since the 9th century, even before the Hijrah of Islam.
Right.
And the other sources are saying, well, we came with the the followers of the prophet. In the middle, there is a story that came back to, because we have a very peculiar archaeological site of funerary places, and that there are about 44, and these people were killed by the king, because they were traveling to the south to the Muslim king of Ifat. So this is the story of mythology that now it seems that as Ethiopian Christian kings are pointing towards Jerusalem, they are also pointing to the Mecca. That is the external.
The holy. Yeah.
Yes, they are the holy places, and so we have, as we have said, that they are conquering, they are competing each other, and
Right.
they have the same God. So they need an external holy place. So they found one. So they had their own.
Right.
So
Right.
there are too much things they share. If you even before Christianity, they were sharing. The pagan cults. We know that we have the same system of burial system in megalithic cultures. Their megalithic cultures also almost the same. We have, the highland the same, and the lowland Goba, they have the same megalithic cultures and system of burial systems, and also decorations, and also bracelets, or material cultures. They have the same material even before Islam or Christianity was introduced. So we know that they have the cultural understanding, and they had also all these needs commerce. There is a trade relation, so they have all this common in common fact, common denominations for them. So there is a real alliance, a real understanding. So what he did, Walasma dynasty, Omar Walasma, two things, he did. First, he tried to make a political marriage with the Shan kings who were in the highland, and with a man called Sultan called Dil Merra. He's also it's the same family, from the Semitic family, Dil Merra, which means so the victory guides you, okay? Dil Merra, which means, so he gave his son to the daughter of Dil Merra, but it doesn't work. So he invaded Shah, and he ended up the dynasty, a very strong dynasty of Shah, and he took all the power. But he left Shah exceptionally. I don't know why he left the Shah, and this opened for the Christians to penetrate to south, to the south part, north, the north, not North Shah, but the highland of Shah, in the middle of, including Addis Ababa or the other areas. They began to control. That is the Christian kingdom that controlled with this, this. But we don't know why he left the Shah. He nominated a person, a certain person, and then he left, and the Christians began to control Shah, and it became one of the. Later, it became one of the center of Christian studies, Christianity, and also one of the center of the military power of and the royal camp of the Christian kingdom after 13th century. So.
Okay. Now this is switching away. We're going back into the Christian kingdom now. We're going back into the Solomonic dynasty. But that's it. I always wanted to know, who are these Walashma dynasty? Where do they come from? But okay, going back. Yeah, same people. They're twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were twins.
Okay. Now, this is about the what they call the Tabot, right? And maybe we can put these two questions together, and that is the role of the Tabot and how that shaped Ethiopian Christendom and the rituals and liturgy and everything, but then also that the Solomonic dynasty in its beginning, it didn't have a capital. Right.
Yeah.
They moved around everywhere. Like a what they call a roving camp.
Roving capital, maybe.
Roving capital.
I would like to explain this one.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's a very. Oh, come on, man. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Regarding Tabot. The history of Tabot. Tabot is very crucial in medieval Ethiopia, particularly for if you begin with the Zagwe kings. The Zagwe kings were still very important, as I've said, in the reawakening of the Christian kingdom in Ethiopia. So they claimed that in the early 12th century, they had the Ark of Covenant. Tabot is simply the two tablets in which the two tablets are placed. The two tablets of the 10 Commandments is placed. And now in Ethiopian Christianity, Tabot is the same thing that represents the same thing, or the Tabot and the tablets of Moses. But we know that the Ark of Covenant, as narrated by I don't remember his name, the Egyptian traveler. I'll bring it back. So he was saying that the Zagwe kings were claiming that they have the Ark of Covenant in their church. The first time mentioned in a written document. And then you see when they develop in the Kibra Negest, the Kibra Negest became, very important manual for the ideology of Shebanization. So they managed to, they came up with the origin of, as I've said, the origin of Ethiopia is not, the Christianity is not from paganism, it is from Judaism. So they have to integrate the Tabot into their liturgy, without which now in Ethiopia there is no church without Tabot. If there is no Tabot, it's not a church. So that's it. The idea is, we should see that also, the Ethiopian Tabot, the Ethiopian Christianity, in two periods, there is Judaism and then Christianity. So these two are intertwined in the church. It should be, you see, we have to intertwine these two ideas. So the church, send the tablets now became very, very important part of not only in the palace, but also in the very, very small local parish. It's very important without. So this makes, tied the church and even the palace into one system of liturgy, into one, all the liturgy teachings, readings are coming, veneration, all this, we did the same thing in palace, we did the same thing in the parish of Ethiopian Christian church. So this, integrated the people who are, Christians, or who later became also Christians. So the Tabot became little by little. Before it was one church, one Tabot is for one church, and later King Zerayakov edicted a new proclamation saying that one church, one Tabot not sufficient to be only. We have to make two or more than one Tabots into the church. That's helped them to create another parish. If it's something that's a conversion, okay, if it's somewhere the conversion, you don't go to search for the priestess or the metropolitan to consecrate another tabot. So you take tabot which is inside the church, so you create another tabot beside, without going too much far in search of the metropolitan, because tabots should be consecrated by the metropolitan. So that's why the tabot is very important to. It is a symbol of course, the symbol of the integration of the two Christian and Judaism and Christian liturgy into one. That's why, as you read Kibra Negest, or as you see the king, the king is, the Lion of Judah, and he's Christian. And the people are elected, Judah. For example, if you see even the male, we are, everybody circumcised before, in 8 days after, as like the family of Abraham, and then baptized after. First you have to Judaize, and second you have to baptize. So you have the tabot. Then when you have the Eucharist, you see the tabot is under the Eucharist, under the communion. This is a table. The table is a tabot, and you put also the communion of the bread and the wine over the tabot, and which shows you exactly the intertwining of the account, or the legend of Kibra Negest here again.
Wow, that's a really incredible, evolution there, going on, this assimilation, and trying to, incorporate, various things, and yeah, I think that's very remarkable. But now, okay. There's something I forgot to ask, and that was about the lineal
I followed
relationships.
your question,
Okay, yeah. That was something I forgot. It was in question number 4, the lineal relationships that were set up throughout the kingdom. Like, so the Amharas would have represented the male line as kings, and then the Hamasan, the Hamasian or Inderta would have represented the queens. They would have been the ones that
Yes, this is
yeah.
mm, just as I've said, when in the process of they are focusing always, as you have said, you having the united Christian kingdom, so, and finally, they began to, as I've said, this is the presence of tabots and so on. Roads, regions began to identify themselves. When you see the foundation of Aksum by the chronicle, by the Kibra Negest as the center of the power, not only the power, also it is Aksum Sion, of course, also the Zion of Aksum. So they are putting all this together, and this identification become very, very important. We'll see that maybe, to replace, of course, the Roha or the Lalibela as a second Jerusalem. Now it is not as for the reasons, economic and political reasons, they took it from Lalibela to Aksum. First, the reason is very, very, very clear that Christianity has begun in Aksum, not in Lalibela. So that's why they tell it back to Aksum, because then the legend also supports them that it is Aksum is the center of King Menelik first. So, and then the idea is also to put Nderta or Tigray, the more, what we call visible in the politics and the religions of Ethiopia, because Nderta also claiming this power. So the Zagwe was abandoned because of their inability. Now, Nderta should be also visible in the politics and the religion. So all these erudites of Ethiopia were now learned in Aksum, like Takla Haymanot, like Jesus Moa, like King Zera Yaakov went as far as he did his coronation ceremony, sacral ceremony. Everybody was going there to Aksum. So that also exalts even the province of Tigray. So they were, this is making it visualizing the king, the Enderta and its descendants. So
Yes.
see, all this brought, now you see that Hamas, where Menelik was the birthplace of Menelik first, and also Tigray, also very important now, and Amhara is very important too. And then they took themselves as the direct descendants of Menelik first. And the northwestern part of the Falasha or Beta Israel also claimed that they are the companions who came with Menelik second, Menelik first. And then the Zagwe also, they say that we are also the half brothers of Menelik first. And then, because we know that the queen of Sheba, she didn't went, alone. She went with her, with her maids and so on.
Her entourage.
So they invented that, to be also part of this the Shebanization ideology. So they were also entered into. So we know that the Zagwe are claiming that they are descendants of the wife of Moses, So they are Solomonian. We know that the first king or the second king, Tetawadim, his name was Solomon. We know that also. So, but now with the order of the day is being the family of, Minilik first. So they put also the half brothers of Minilik first. And when this son, when we go to the south also into Gojam, this is a pagan area now. So they were converted to Christianity, and all their, because the local traditional beliefs of stone sacrifice, they were sacrificing on the stone, then it is reinterpreted as Orit, which means Abrahamic. No, you forgot your origin. So this is Abrahamic, not pagan. So you have to be, come to this, the Shebanization attracted them, and they accepted them. They converted also to Christianity with this this notion. So they became also part of Shebanization, and they finally come up with our descendants. Our descendants were, of course, we are descending from the sister of King of Sheba. So they enter into this area. And this, when you go to the south, also this converted to Christianity kingdoms like Kafa or like Walaita or like Gamu, like Gurage and so on. They are claiming that we are descendants of the northern Christian kings. They are descendants of King Yaakov, or we are descendants of the Hamassen chiefs, or we are the descendants of the Tigrayan chiefs. And then this brought, of course, we understand that they are becoming, into the same agreement that with they surely, that they are now accepting Christianity and accepting all the liturgy and the tabot system, and they became into one family, into one state, one home. We call it the promised land of Ethiopia.
Right. They're all coming together as a family.
Yes.
Okay.
Despite any difference between, the religion or once they are introduced, and despite this ethnic differences, you see that these people are different. Many people speaking different languages. Even the Muslims are. You see that when you see the Muslims are also, they have the same. They began to assume. Also, they are attracted with that, and they taking this paradigm. And then once the Sultan of the time of King Abdul, the Sultan of Sabraddin, said that I will put my kingdom I create my kingdom of Ethiopia. No, he said I will create my kingdom of Ethiopia.
Okay.
Together, everything together as it is, and we see that Imam Muhammad also did this. United. He never, he said, no, we can't leave this kingdom. It's it's now ours, where we are going to go. And that is how they inspire them to be a strong kingdom in Ethiopia.
Right.
In the Middle Age.
Okay. Well, I won't try to hold you up too long. I'll just ask these three more questions. So this one is about the roving camp, the Katama.
The Katama is very, as we have said, Ikono Amlak is now, it's wise. He decided, of course. I think he measured well, the situation. Keeping one, in this fragmented kingdom, fragmented society, and everybody is to become king. So he decided to displace from place to place his court, from place to place. And the first thing is for the reason of military reason. And the second is for if they refuse the tribute, they have to. He must go. If you have to see also, his army is very limited in the beginning. So He can't put his capital in somewhere and send the others. So when the tributes refused, and he has to be there, he has to be present, because the idea of the king also he has the responsibility of dying for his people. That's as his take. He gets them from his Lord. So that is a very important point. And the third is the third point is, it's also a force, a very strong force. When you imagine 14th, 15th century court, that's why I'm saying that Katama is a roving capital, because there are about between 13 and 14,000 people are moving with him. And if someone if some region they're against the way, or they refuse to come to pay their tributes, he will say, I will come with my town, my city. So
Yeah.
that will be very devastating economically, and it's a force also, so
Yes.
it's a very, very strong force.
Mhm.
So establish itself. He could sit about 2 years, 3 years in the same region, not only for economic reason, but also for it makes you feel that 2,000, 30, 40,000, and also all the resources they have to feed this all people. All so the people who are against the king, they are really they were really prudent, and also sources are showing that no, don't come to us, we will pay you your annual tributes. I have read this, it's no way we will pay. So that is a very systematic system of administration, and also it's interesting because the fourth point, I am saying that Ethiopia in the Middle Age was, the people of migrations. People are migrating because of food shortage or drought, or because of military, so this is because of the kings also displaces people are rebelling against them. We know that King Amdesion and Mariam displaced people who were against them, displaced from Bali to Gojam. It's very far. I don't know how many days, 6 months like that. Far from 6 months. So this is a source of migration, and then there is a trade routes, trade transaction and so on. So the inside, enhanced even the displacement of people from place to place, because there were 30,000 people who are going to the south, and the other people are coming to the north, and that was, it's a very good idea of course, to the not unity, not the cultural exchange. And the cultural conformity of the spirit, that's also very important in Ethiopian.
Connection is unstable.
It's mine. It's mine, or I don't know.
I don't know. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Sometimes it's okay. It's unstable.
Yeah.
So just I was concluding, of course, the first point. I was saying that as of it's the intentional displacement also. It is intentional. It's not we know that how the churches they built, how they are very, very exceptionally big, those they are destroyed. And they are fashioned also. The royal churches were especially very, very, very well done. In the they inspired even from the the Renaissance period also, we have elements of the Renaissance architecture in medieval Ethiopia. It's not a question of stabilizing, stabilizing is for them, creating a stable, a permanent capital is not, for them, it was not a very good system. That was, Zara Yacob tried 14 years in Debre Braha, but finally his son, he quit that idea. And he displaced, he went to as far as Tigray and died in Zagwe, near Zagwe. How many kilometers in 10 years? It took a very long time, very long trajectories to. And the idea for me, it's very interesting because their displacement was intentional, so they were also, enhancing the relation, the contact, and intermarriage, interrelation, all this were created. That's why, the people of Ethiopia were migrant, migrant people. It is not very difficult to displace from one place to place. Even already, the king is displacing everywhere. So,
right.
It was acceptable.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. That's remarkable. I can't imagine having 30 to 40,000 people going like that. That is so. That's just like I don't know. How could you manage that? But okay. Can you hear me?
Particularly in the Middle Age, Yeah.
You break. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's breaking up. It's the internet is breaking up. But that is a remarkable thing. Okay. So, lastly, I think you touched on this before a little bit.
Yeah.
But could you explain the importance of Aksum as the new Zion and the replication of the idea throughout the Ethiopian kingdom? I think you talked a little bit about that before.
Yes. The Aksum Zion is, as I've said, it's very important part of the Ethiopian Christianity, also the Ethiopian Judaism. The Kibra Negest was, translated, monumentally in Aksum, So in this period, as it was replacing the Zagwe, the Zagwe second Jerusalem, and Aksum Zion. Then Aksum, as I have said, it was established in Christian Ethiopia by Ethiopian kings, the pagan Ethiopian kings, and the first place of Christianity where Christianity was, as declared as a state religion. So we have the cathedral of Aksum is very important in that time also. That's why, here and there we have Aksum here and there. Then after that, you see, we have the cathedral in the first part, and then the second phase is the Zion part, the Aksum, the Zion first. So this is going with the explanation of Kibra Negest. Zion is, that's representing, because that now the Tabot is coming into Aksum. So we know that Zion is the seat of the seat of Tabot of the David, or the David in the time of Solomon. It was there who they established the first temple of Israel, temple of God in Zion. So they took the idea from Kibra Negest, and then they translated it to the Aksum as the place of Zion, because it has the Tabot, and also Aksum is a Christian center. It has also the Christian place, and Zion is related to Tabot, and Aksum, Mariam Zion, Mariam Zion is also when the cult of Mary is very strongly preached by King Ayenachew. So as you know, he explains that the womb of Christ, Christ was in the womb of Mary, and that's interprets she was the sign of Christ in the place of the flesh, the Zion in flesh. Okay, that was his explanation. So that's why we are saying that the Aksum is the Aksum Sion, Aksum, the Zion of Aksum.
Ah, okay. Yeah. I like this Yaakov. I like Aaron Yaakov.
Yes,
He's a smart guy.
invented and
Yeah.
with a very fist arm,
Yeah.
iron fist with iron fist,
Right. Right.
it's very,
Okay.
very, very transformed Ethiopia. All that I am saying, that all this that was started by Amdet Zion, which was started by Amdet Zion, was by all the cultural changes, religious changes, and also administration, political changes were well refined, explained, given reason, and as I've said, implemented with iron fist from north to east, to south, and east to west, without any hesitation. It's a very strong, very transformational period of Yaakov. Yes, that's why he was the first man who did his sacral, or we call it sacrament of the king, the coronation sometimes. For the first time in Aksum, he was there for about 3 years, and he did inventory of every material cultures which were located in the city of Aksum, and named them with the new Christian names or biblical names. All these, some of them are, as you know, that they were, abandoned by the Aksumite kings because they were pagan monuments. But he reinterpreted them, reinvented. He did inventory and named, and there is a well-known book, translated by Conti Rossini. He called this document of Aksum says that this was the Renaissance of Aksum. When King Ayenachew was, there, it is, they underscored that it was the Renaissance of Aksum since its fall in 780. So that's very important. And then you saw, that throughout Aksum throughout medieval period, or throughout Ethiopian history, part of the part of patriotism, or reflection of any challenge. For example, when the kings were, during Imam Muhammad, or during the Jesuits mess, also, Basilidas, he went to Aksum, and he monumentalized the church. He built the first church after Imam Muhammad, very strong in the style of the Gondarian style, and he was saying that he was, and then in the time of Italian also, Italian was attacking this, it's the same thing, but finally Haile Selassie built very, very persuasive church now in use. So and I'm even seeing that one of the reasons for Menelik's one of the major reasons for Menelik battle, toward the battle of Adwa, was conserving Aksum Sion. See, if you don't have in the Solomonic Dynasty, if there is no design, there is no throne. So
right.
So he went as far as Adwa, and he fought for the conservation of Aksum Sion, because without which there is no throne.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Well, this leads me to my last question, because
Yeah.
we've got, yeah, we did some deep history. This has been very fascinating. Can you
Thank you so much.
explain why it has taken a long period of time for scholarship to be done on this period of history, say the medieval history of Ethiopia? Um, do you think it has anything to do with the 1974
Mm,
political and
mm,
social revolution that took place?
mm, mm.
Um,
Yes, it's part of this is, the medieval studies was a very important part of even in the beginning of the Shaba University. Many of scholars were, medieval historians, even Ethiopians were, graduating. Most of them were, medieval period, and history was, and the historical research also in Ethiopia, archaeology or historical studies were started even by, medieval history. If you go to Maxum or from the south, also, all the early excavation, 1940s, 50s, 70s, or like that, of 16th, all these are, the contribution of the medieval period. And so I was saying that, this has to the relation between the medieval Ethiopian studies and the political and social revolution of 1974. Its impacts were very, very important. And as I understand that, they didn't realize that, the Ethiopian Shebanization ideology is coming from long, 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 long time, from a long period of time, and it was installed also in the societies, as we have seen in the life and religion and the economy of the society. And they didn't realize also that was very important, and they took it as a reactionary, completely reactionary and backward. But we see that it was a very wise decision, and tried their best. So in 20th century, we would have proposed based on their politics. We would have proposed another, the same, not the same, but another concept, which would be indigenous. So, as I've said that, this revolution, this Shebanization, doesn't origin from outside completely. It was from indigenous knowledge, indigenous Christianity. And so they would have understood this way, it would have been better for Ethiopian revolution. But the Ethiopian revolution radically wanted to change the Shebanization ideology, and replaced it by another communist ideology. So it's the worst part of the, and it doesn't work more than 70 years, so, and I don't think, we died for 70 years. We killed about 10,000 students and so on. I don't know if it was, reasonable ideology at that time, and a complete misunderstanding of our ancestors, who were brilliant and inclusive, and very interestingly inclusive, as I've said, that you saying that your religion is not, we are the same. This is Abrahamic, so we can enjoy the other things. And for your information, maybe the last question, it says that all these medieval narratives are very interesting for medieval Ethiopia, and particularly one can understand that this origin of inclusiveness, well recorded by European travelers. They were amazed, seeing that the people, southern part of Ethiopian people are working, integrated, were working in the royal court of the king himself, the interior of his court, and they were well versed, well, they understood, and then they not only that, once they are accepting what they call the Shebanization, no one is, prevented from to take the highest office of that period. They can go as far as they can. It was their competence was very important. We know their names. It's amazing, from south, from north, from the east, and there's very. This is fascinating to me how in that period how they arrived to understand it. Even I was amazed when the soldiers were singing, their respective language during the king's parade, it's amazing.
Yeah.
How it is possible, they were singing before him and in their language,
Right.
No one.
Right. They were happy to have him be there. Huh?
Yes. So they were singing, and you see the promised land of Ethiopia. Maybe it is Ethiopia. Everything is Ethiopia. Even communism is also Ethiopia. So there is no fact in it. It's not reality. Right. Also, even if we know that it could be possible, but the possibility is very difficult. And the same is true for the Shebanization. They have the image of the millenarianism of the return of Christ, and in their mind, same. They are working for the same group, and then they're sharing everything, their knowledge, and women was also very important in the Middle Ages. If you read King Zagwe, appointed women in his government, and the queen,
his wife,
queen of, she's coming from Hadia, and she was amazing. If you see that, once King Zagwe died, she was the most important consulted woman for the last 20-30 years, and she was doing a very, very important contact. Even she built a royal church in Gojam, not in Hadia. This is amazing. She was buried in Gojam, not in Hadia. You see that how women were very important, and in every politics you see they are very strong, and if they want to oppose the king, they oppose, up to their days. We know that Zagwe was harsh to his wife, but she was opposing him, and she's not less than men to plot against him. Also, the politics is there. There is. I see the liberty of the women also in the politics of in the politics of Shebanization, because the Shebanization idea is, as I've told you, that it gives everybody is here in the promised land. They have all the right. This is a question. The idea of promised land is very, very, very inclusive for them also. You see also Imam Muhammad was saying that the chronicler for Imam Muhammad was astonished because how this Muslim converted to Christianity were fighting for Christian king just as strong as this. He was surprised, and he cursed them. You see how they built it. You see how they were building the idea of Shebanization. When you continue in the 16th century, you see after this all chaos, they came up again with the same ideology. There is no another ideology which replaced. Even in the modern times, the Shebanization system is very astonishing, because in the time of Theodros Kaklagyorgis or Minilik or It is not now. Everybody is Shebanized, everybody is Solomonian, and you can claim the power as long as you have the military power. Then no one is asking him. Theodorus was not a Solomonian, or no one is asking. Tekle Georgis from Lasta was not. He ruled 3 years before Johannes, and no one was asking him. He was not Solomonian. If Johannes took power, and no one is asking him, he was not Solomonian. Or Menelik was took the power, no one is asking Solomonian. So it's continued to tie everybody, and I don't know, for me it is it's very long to be to be a very long ideology which is indigenized from Africa, and from they took all this idea from Africa, the Middle East, and the Arab world and so on. They put it into one, and then they brought it into up to 1974. You see how they fought the Battle of Adwa, how they fought for the patriotism is that they died for promised land of Ethiopia. Everybody was so it's a very important day. They understood that they had the nation they called nation in the medieval period. I'm working on the document here from Rome in the Vatican. It says that the people who came from the pilgrims who came from Rome, from Ethiopia to Rome, and they were saying that people who came from the beloved country of Ethiopia in the early 16th century. So Imam Muhammad was chasing the king. They were saying that we are coming from this beloved country, and when they heard that Imam Muhammad was defeated, they were saying that the restoration of our country and so on. So I was saying that how they imagined they became nation, before anybody. Nationalism was the concept of nation is already built in the early in the 15th, 16th century. That's why Ethiopia continued to remain independent in Africa, or even in this world,
Right. Because they had a sense of identity, a sense of nationalism. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't, the imagination that you can't enslave Israel. That is the idea in the Bible. You can't enslave the promised land of Ethiopia. You can't win the promised land of Ethiopia, because if they were destroyed or they were distracted, it was because of their sin, not because of the greatness of their enemy.
Right.
So they came back to that idea, to the paradigm of the Bible, and the paradigm of the nation. So they are successful, still retaining their independence.
Yes. All right. Well, Dr. Ayenachew, I want to thank you again for.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon, again.
Yeah, I'm sorry I took up so much of your time, but
No, it's very, it was enjoyable now. It's very nice. I am happy. That's why I asked you after 2 o'clock. It's good for me.
Oh, okay, great,
and
great.
In vacation, so no worries.
Okay, yes.
So thank you so much for having me. And I saw the Aswa Wilson and the other interview. It was very interesting, and
thank you.
Thanks so much. And I will find Jantra. Don't worry. And I will try my best.
Okay.
And I will try to write even an article if it's possible.
Okay. Thank you. I'm a second.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Talk to you later. Ciao.